Staying with us. Now, the newly elected ANC chairperson in the Johannesburg region says focus will be on renewing and uniting ANC branches. Dada Morero won the big position today after a weekend-long elective conference. He defeated Yunus by a 10-vote margin. To speak about his plans for the city, he joins us now in studio. Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Morero. We do appreciate it. I know it's been a very long weekend. I'm surprised that there were no disruptions because almost every single ANC conference has had disruption after disruption. But I want to speak about you being elected and voted into this position by just 10 votes. That's very close. And hearing about this position and the fact that you are being elected and appointed after you've had 3 of your members pass on, it must be quite a difficult position to move into with a lot of challenges that you face.
Well, the Regional Executive Committee has served for almost 10 years as the Regional Secretary, having worked with Comrade Parkstow as the chair, and later worked with the late Comrade Jeff Makubu as the chair. So I've had an opportunity to serve with those comrades, and I did not realize any difficulties really currently as I'm being elected into that position. But I should say the loss of life of our comrades, especially Comrade Jeff, Comrade Jolie, and Comrade Paul Moerane, was more difficult going to conference, having lost him almost just 2 weeks before conference, and definitely the pain was difficult for ourselves as members of the Regional Executive Committee. However, we had to continue with conference. We delayed it at least for a week or so to allow for comrades the period of mourning, and also to allow ourselves to deal with other outstanding issues in preparations for conference.
Yeah. Do you think that you have the necessary support within the region?
Well, the support is there. Remember, at conference you have 286 delegates that were at conference, and you have got 2 people contesting the same position, and definitely we will go out and lobby delegates, and whether the margin is 10 or 1, fact of the matter is that conference had then declared that Dada Morero should then assume the position of chair of the region, and they had showed confidence in myself as leading, and certainly the branches of Johannesburg and the delegates themselves also had confidence in the fact that Comrade Yunus is also capable to lead the organization as chair of the region. Remember, he had also served a term as the deputy chair of the region of Johannesburg. So we are all capable comrades, except that only one then had to be elected into the position.
I want us to speak about unity and governance issues within the ANC, because this is an issue that many regions and many provinces face, and we've seen this through the local government elections where citizens have lost confidence and trust in the ANC, and you have a difficult task ahead of you in terms of trying to regain the trust of the people on the ground, especially making sure that as a party you remain and have the front of a unified party and a party that understands the governance.
Well, the ANC, we could not be faltered on matters of governance, especially in Johannesburg. If you look at our track record, since the establishment of local government and the ANC was in power, you would see that we have been consistent, and part of what we had adopted when we came into government was one important pillar that we thought it's necessary for government, which was called good governance. We insisted on ensuring all our departments, city departments and MOEs were compliant to the principles of good governance, and we focused on that thing to build on it, and we were sure that in 10 years we were able to ensure that good governance, we build on good governance, and throughout the city we never had issues around governance. In fact, the collapse of good governance in the city would have happened immediately in 2016 when we lost government, because we are convinced that those that took government were not willing to account, even to council, and they will make decisions to even undermine the authority of council. And as a result of that, we started experiencing weaknesses in matters of governance in the city of Johannesburg. Unfortunately, we only had 2 years, 2019 to 2021, to try and fix the 3 years that would have messed up the good governance practice that we had put in place. And that time period was not sufficient to allow us to correct some of these things. It was something that you build over a long period of time can be collapsed in a very short space of time. Now we think that going back into government, and it gives us a longer period than just 2 years, we'll be able to correct quite a number of things. And in that correction, we will then regain the confidence of our people throughout Johannesburg, and we believe that the ANC will once more be seen as a party that responds to the needs and the challenges of our people. And remember, part of the issues that the ANC would have been faced with are matters which in the main are national matters that we ourselves in Johannesburg do not necessarily have control. And we did at conference looked at the diagnostic report, which would have been presented by a National Executive Committee. And part of the issues that we looked at was the trust deficit between ourselves as a party and our people, or the voters, or the electorate. And it's one area that we want to really, really work on so that we can close that gap.
Hopefully, Mr. Morero, because the people vote, and the people, that's how they have their say and express their dissatisfaction with how a city is being run. What's interesting here is that ANC chair in Gauteng, who's also the Premier, David Makhura, when speaking at the regional conference, both in Johannesburg and Tshwane, alluded to the fact that the trust of the people needs to be regained. The president of the ANC speaking about that as well at the Limpopo ANC provincial conference, alluding to the fact that there clearly is a trust deficit, and South Africans are just not trusting the work that's being done by the ruling party. And a lot of it is felt, especially in cities and regions and smaller areas where there is no service delivery. The chair of the province himself is saying how important it is to bring back that service delivery and to be at the forefront of providing the services to the people, because this is what we do. We pay for services. We are taxpayers. We want our lights on. We want our street lights on. We want our litter to be picked up. There's so many more other issues. But how important is it for you to make sure that there is service delivery in the city of Johannesburg? Because if you drive around now, most of the street lights don't work. The city's filthy, crime is out of control, there are just a number of issues. How important is it for you, being elected now, to consider service delivery?
Well, certainly we are in the opposition currently, and our work as an opposition party is to challenge those issues directly. And we are going to ensure that in council we raise those matters through petitions, through all sorts of methods that council does allow us to do, to put pressure on the executive or the ruling party currently to attend to those issues, which of course they must take accountability and responsibility for the collapse that is happening now in infrastructure. There's potholes, yes, you are correct. We had plans, and part of those plans we have spoken to 100 billion infrastructure investment that we had planned on, and unfortunately were disrupted in 2016. And honestly, citizens in Johannesburg would tell you prior to 2016, the levels of infrastructure collapse were very, very low, because we had realized the importance of closing potholes at that point. We were doing it. We were closing potholes, making sure that robots work under the leadership of the ANC, by the way. And this is also attributed to the type of management that we had put in place or recruited. And you'd realize that once the DA came into power in 2016, one of the biggest mistakes they did was to purge those professionals that understood what needs to be happen in the city of Johannesburg, where the necessary skill set that were used to keep the city running. The lights were on, the robots were working, no potholes, refuse was collected, but certainly all that was disrupted.
It wasn't a perfect city, though.
Yes,
let's
it was
be honest.
perfect. There were those, of course, there were challenges here and there, but in the main, when you woke up, there was water, your lights were on, your refuse was being collected. So we ensured that the services or give our citizens a good experience of being citizens of Johannesburg. So that we tried at all times, and we ensured that our executives are held accountable. At all times we held them accountable. So there were a number of innovative programs that we had put in place. As I said, we had 100 billion infrastructure investment, so that we wanted to ensure that the infrastructure of this big city remains in a good shape. So.
I want us to speak about plans moving forward and whether or not you are going to be willing to work with other political parties like the DA or like the EFF. Are you willing to do so, or do you want to get full control back, and do you hope to get full control back?
Well, getting full control back means waiting for the next local government election. At this current stage, yes, we would want to work and form coalitions with other parties, including the EFF, whom, of course, we think that to a large extent we do share some of the ideological thinking. So we do not have any opposition to sharing power with those or creating and forming coalitions with any other party that believes that the citizens of Johannesburg comes first, and they deserve better, and they deserve quality services. And in fact, by the way, the ANC in Johannesburg in 2019, we had also considered the possibility of what we call a grand coalition, which necessarily means going into a coalition with a party that you are ideologically opposed. And in this case, we were also prepared to go into a coalition, a grand coalition with the Democratic Alliance, because we understood that at that time we're the only two biggest parties in the city, and both of us have interest in the life and the development of the city, and therefore we thought a grand coalition was one option that we can look at. But subsequently, we then established a coalition with smaller parties who shared similar constituencies with the ANC, which is the African Independent Congress, the IFP, etc., and we did establish a working, by the way, coalition, which its successes in the main was to address roads, road development and stormwater development. And in 2020, we then put aside a budget to address road infrastructure in Orange Farm and Ivory Park, which we thought are necessary because we believed that through infrastructure development we'll be able to contribute towards economic development, and hence we took that view that let's go into the townships, Ivory Park and Orange Farm, develop the infrastructure so that movement of goods and services could be faster, and in that way we are contributing to economic development.
Okay, I don't want to rush you, but I've run out of time and I have to ask you two very more important questions. Yes. We're moving to provincial conference. Lebohang Maile or Panyaza Lesufi?
Well, conference of the branches of Johannesburg are still to pronounce. Prior to the conference, we will have our general council where we will declare the support to either of those candidates that are standing. Both of them have been nominated by our branches in Johannesburg. For now, we can only wish them luck until Johannesburg declares as to who will they be putting their weight behind.
Okay, clearly no, I'm not going to get a name from you, but that's fine. We'll just have to wait and see. Just lastly, we also did invite the MMC of Economic Developments in Johannesburg to be part of this interview because some allegations have been made by yourself with regards to this particular individual. Could you maybe just tell us what is actually going on there? Because we have given them an opportunity to respond and we've been told that they're dealing with it and they cannot respond right now.
Yeah, well, we are actually happy that the Speaker of Council has now instituted an investigation on the allegations as presented by the ANC in relation to the conduct and the behavior of the MMC. Secondly, the complaints have also been lodged with the public protector for it to help us investigate the conduct of the MMC. The separation of powers, politicians in the city are not supposed to interfere with the running of government, especially issues of procurement, and he decided to get involved on those issues and started questioning BOQs and all other things and trying to share that information with a particular service provider, which we thought it is interference and colluding with a particular service provider, which raised eyebrows, and we believe it's part of a conduct, it's suspicious conduct that leads to corruption, and hence we raise these matters with the public protector. And we are also excited and happy that finally the Democratic Alliance itself, through the Speaker of Council, they've instituted investigation based on those allegations. So certainly, remember, we have a responsibility to hold those that in government to account, and as and when they behave wrongly, we must raise those issues, because it can't always be that people think it's only the ANC that's corrupt. So we must raise it, even if it's the DA or a member of the Action SA, so that we send a message even to Mashaba that, by the way, you have accused the ANC of corruption on a number of instances. Look at your own people now who have almost, 3 to 5 months in government. They're already involving themselves into wrong things. So we must raise these matters, and
sure.
We will continue to raise them sharply.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for your time, and we wish you all the best. I hope you keep my street lights on, because it's a big problem I have.
Once the ANC is in power, we'll ensure that we keep your street lights on.
Great. I hate it when it's dark. It's just...
No, we'll keep it on.
Great. Thank you so much for your time. We do appreciate it. That's newly elected ANC Johannesburg Regional Chairperson, Dada Morero, just speaking to us about some of his plans, and hopefully they'll be able to try and turn the city around.